Hello, my dear friends, I am Saurabh. So, today we are going to discuss an interesting poem, Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening, written by a famous American poet, Robert Frost. Friends, this poem has a deep and symbolic meaning, but our video will definitely help you to understand the poem easily. Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening, written by Robert Frost. Friends, first of all, we start with some important points regarding to our writer, that is Robert Frost. Okay, let's start. Robert Frost is an American famous poet. He is an famous American poet. Okay, next point. Robert Frost famous for interlinking human experiences with nature. Next point, his poems are simple and easy to understand, but they have symbolic meaning. But his poems have what? Symbolic meaning. So remember that thing. Next point, the poem is about contemplation of nature. Dates of Frost. You know the importance of dates. In our last lecture, we have discussed it. So dates are 1874 to 1963. Next point. Poem describes the beauty of dark, deep and lovely woods, snowflakes, frozen lake in the winter evening. I repeat, poem describes the beauty of dark, deep and lovely woods. Remember that thing. Dark, deep and lovely woods. Next one, snowflakes. Snowflakes means, I think you know, it means बर्फाचा लहान तुकडा किंवा बर्फाचे लहान लहान तुकडे. नेक्स्ट वन इज फ्रोझन लेक मीन्स यू नो गोठलेले तळ. इन द विंटर इव्हनिंग द ॲटमॉस्फिअर इज वॉट winter evening. Next point, the present poem is simple, easy to understand. 16 lines poem. What? The present poem is simple, easy to understand and 16 lines poem, and it describes a winter season. Next point, the speaker is passing by this scene. Which scene? The dark deep woods, dark deep lovely woods, snowflakes, frozen lake and winter evening. The speaker in the poem is passing by this scene on his horse and stops to see the winter beauty. And why stop? Because he has to see what? Winter beauty. Okay. The snowfall is covering the forest and the lake is frozen. The snowfall is covering the forest and the lake is frozen. Next point, this scene made him halt. This scene means which scene? The frozen lake, the snowflakes, etc. And the specifically what? Winter evening makes him what? This scene makes him a halt. Halt means what? In simple, थोडा वेळ थांबू वाटणे किंवा थोडा वेळ थांबणे त्या ठिकाणी एखाद्या. नेक्स्ट पॉइंट, द पोएट इज लॉस्ट इन ब्युटीज ऑफ नेचर अँड द पोएम हॅज अ सिम्बॉलिक मिनिंग. द पोएट इज लॉस्ट इन ब्युटीज ऑफ नेचर. रिमेंबर दॅट पॉइंट. In the beginning of the story, we have discussed what the poem has symbolic meaning. So that's why now we are going to see actually what symbolic meaning the poem has. Okay. Dark woods suggest last journey. What? The lovely, deep and dark woods means especially the dark woods suggest what? Last journey. And sleep suggests death. And what? The sleep suggests death in the present poem. Remember that in these 2 points are very important. What? Dark woods suggest last journey and sleep suggest death. Okay. At the last, the harness bells makes him aware or reminds him about his promises to fulfill before he passes away. I repeat, at the last, the harness bells means what? घोड्याच्या गळ्यातील घुंगरू किंवा घोड्याच्या गळ्यातील घंटा. Okay, our speaker is seated on the back of the horse, we have discussed it. Okay, at the last, the harness bells makes him aware or reminds him about his promises to fulfill before he passes away. Okay, remember that point. This point is also very important, and the actual meaning of the poem hidden in that point. Next point, present poem is the experience of every human being. Present poem is the experience of human being or every human being, we can say. Next, the poem has a universal appeal. The poem has a universal appeal. Next, the speaker is on horseback. The speaker is on horseback going to his home, but stopped to see the place, or we can say the scene. Which scene? Frozen lake, dark deep lovely woods, snowflakes, and winter evening. Means the nature beauties, we can say. Next point, the speaker of the poem is a traveler who is seated on horse. The speaker of the poem is a traveler who is seated on horse. And remember one thing, the name of that particular traveler is not mentioned in the story. Remember that thing. The home of the speaker is far from that place where speaker stopped. Where speaker stopped? At dark deep woods, frozen lake, snowflakes are there, and what? Snowy evening. And the whole forest were covered by what? Snowfall. Okay, speaker expected to do his promises before going to sleep. Speaker expected to do his promises before he going to sleep. Sleep means what? The symbolic meaning of the sleep is what? Death. Okay, remember that thing. In the present poem, the winter season is described. Okay, remember that point also. The main theme of the poem is desire versus obligations. The main theme of the poem is what? Desire versus obligations. म्हणजे मानवी इच्छा विरुद्ध बंधने. मानवाच्या ज्या इच्छा असतात त्याच्या आयुष्यभरातल्या किंवा त्याचा विरंगुळा जिथं असतो, त्याला फ्री टाईम भेटतो, त्याच्या विरुद्ध आपण काय म्हणू शकतो? बंधने किंवा रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटीज. ओके, life, responsibilities and death are the basic keys in the poem. Life, responsibilities and death are the basic keys in the poem. Last two lines of the poem, and miles to go before I sleep, and miles to go before I sleep. These two lines are last lines of the poem, and you can write it in your exams, as well as it has very symbolic meaning. The symbolic meaning is what? Miles to go before I sleep. मला खूप दूर जायचं आहे बिफोर आय स्लीप. स्लीप मीन्स वॉट? मृत्यू, डेथ. मरण्याच्या पूर्वी मला खूप लांब जायचं आहे. व्हाय? बिकॉज ही हॅज टू फुलफिल द प्रॉमिसेस. ओके, in the book the poem starts at page number 81. Try to read the original poem from the book. Okay friends, in the present poem Frost describes the journey of a man in between the woods and frozen lake, and the man stops to see the beauty of nature, but he can't stop for more time because he has to fulfill promises before he dies. Okay, remember that point. In Marathi we could say, कोणत्याही व्यक्तीला मरण्यापूर्वी त्याचे लाईफ रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटीज किंवा त्याचे जे प्रॉमिसेस आहेत ते त्याला पूर्ण करावेच लागतात. अँड दिस इज द जर्नी ऑफ ईच अँड एव्हरी ह्युमन बीइंग, वी कॅन से. ओके, सो आय होप यू अंडरस्टँड द पोएम अँड try to read the poem from the book also. Okay, thank you.